What is up, potties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time in Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. We have some Deebo Samuel news to talk about. He reportedly wanted a new contract, then was reportedly offered a new contract, then reportedly denied said new contract and demanded a trade. So we're going to talk about that. And then, of course, we're going to hit on the NBA playoffs. A lot of you got mad at us last time that we didn't talk about the Timberwolves and Grizzlies. We had some technical difficulties. It wasn't entirely our fault. So we're going to make sure to hit on that one hard today. But
you missed. We had technical difficulties and it had to get cut. It was unsalvageable, and people missed Matt's big speech about how Anthony Edwards was better, is better, and will always be better than LaMelo Ball. Went on this 10-minute tirade about how LaMelo has been selling.
There were tears. So I'm glad that it ended up.
He's a future Laker, and he's glad about it. Yeah, and Anthony Edwards is so clear. I can't believe it got taken out.
It was for the best.
Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I'm pretty good. I was at a Freddie Gibbs concert yesterday night, which was a lot of fun. He was really good. The DJ there, I thought he was funny the DJ, they only had one saying to get the crowd hyped. They said the same thing over and over again.
What was it?
It was it's 420. Who's smoking some weed? He said that he said that at least 20 times, and everybody was just. It's can we maybe switch it up a little bit to say something else? I thought that was just a funny little moment. I was not, by the way. I was not. Just to put that out there.
Neither
for
was
my parents who may be listening, but other people were. I can't deny that. But yeah, that was really good. He was a great show. Really charismatic and played the hits. And
I know you're a big Freddie Gibbs fan.
I'm a big Freddie Gibbs fan, man. I have Freddie Gibbs tape. I think Bandana is his best album for all the Freddie Gibbs fans out there. I know Pinata is the one that's highest regarded, and I love that album too. But Bandana to me is his best. So those are my quick thoughts off the top.
I fear my album will be better. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I got a haircut today. I know I'm wearing the hat, and I went to go work out. So now the hat is.
You got to show off the cut.
You got it next episode for sure. But good haircuts, as a guy, I feel are few and far between. So I'm pretty jolly right now.
Especially immediately after the haircut. It takes me 2 weeks before it starts to look good. When I first get a haircut, I'm like, man, they ruined it. They ruined me.
Right, so if I like it now,
you guys
2 weeks.
They ruined me.
Rumor has it Matt and Theo do not have a good barber.
I think it's harder. I think it's more of a white person hair thing. I don't know if that's true. I feel we don't really get the fresh lineup. I don't know. It's not really a lineup or anything like that.
I've found a guy who is really good. And
okay. With me, it's always it takes the hair kind of has to grow in a little bit before it looks good. When they immediately chop it off, it doesn't look super clean to me. Although I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but that kind of seems
I would say my hair looks good for about 2 weeks after I get it cut. And then for about 2 weeks, it's in an awkward stage like it is right now. And then after that, it'll look good until
that's the opposite with me. I think 2 weeks after my haircut, it looks the best. It gets a little bit short. And then 2 weeks after it grows in a little bit, maybe it's just because I'm used to it. And then it starts to look real good. You
just got used to his hair.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But the fellas out there listening, I'm sure can relate. But yeah, I think it's a pretty common experience too.
We're gonna find you a barber one of these days, Theo, or a stylist. I don't know. We'll find you someone. But let's talk about. Well, first, Matt got a haircut. That's a good thing that happened to Stay Hot. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. As always, if anything good happens to Stay Hot, you have to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is the law. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. But let's hop in to some football. Deebo Samuel. Theo, I know you wanted to go on a bit of a rant about him. If you want.
I think it's just the dumbest trade request I've ever seen. I just don't understand what he's thinking. This is a guy who in college was kind of a hybrid gadget guy. The questions were is he a traditional wide receiver? He gets to the 49ers. They craft this like perfect role for him that basically would win him offensive player of the year any year that Cooper Kupp didn't exist. Like he had just a fantastic, phenomenal year. And from what I've heard, he's mad about the role. The role to me is perfect. And I get that maybe you don't want the running back touches and it takes, it strains your body and it takes years off your career. But it seems pretty easy to communicate that to like Kyle Shanahan and be like, hey, I just don't want don't run me through the tackles as much. I'm not comfortable with it. Like, has he, I guess I don't know. I don't know the guy, but like, it seems like he kind of hasn't tried doing that yet, or like that. It just seems rushed, and maybe they just lowballed him, and that's the real issue. And if they lowballed him, I get it,
and that's a whole other issue,
right? But these issues with, I don't want to be in the role I'm in. Like, again, that's something, communicate with your don't get out of there. And it's not like he has a tweet from when he got drafted. I'm the most versatile wide receiver in this class. That's why I'm wide receiver 1. People asked him like, what position would you say? And he had would you say you are? And he had a big smile and he's like, I'm a wide back, a wide receiver running back. And he like throughout the season, it seems like he took a lot of pride in getting these running back touches. And it was a really good situation for, I think, everybody involved. And now all of a sudden you've got him being like, I want to trade. And then he tweeted like, the only people who know what's going on, all these reporters are lying. The only person who knows what's going on is Deebo Samuel, the 49ers, and my agent, pretty much. It's like, bro, you just liked a tweet that said, you would look great on a cow with a Cowboys star on your helmet, and literally told the reporter, I guess, like the reporter who broke this news was literally just spoke to Deebo Samuel and he said this. So it's like you're pretending that it's not even happening as well. It's just like I don't think he's going to get traded. I think that like something I thought maybe the Chiefs and Packers should have done a little bit more is actually like called the bluff of the wide receivers that they are on and like maybe wait a little bit into training camp before trading them. I guess before the draft is a thing where it's like, if you really think it's a lost cause, you'll want picks in this year's draft. So maybe I get it, but I think the 49ers are going to call his bluff. I think they're not going to move him before the draft. And they're going to be like, if you want to Le'Veon Bell yourself and sit out an entire year, you can go right on ahead and do that. But I don't think he's going to get moved. I don't think that this is a super well thought out trade request. It just doesn't seem that way to me.
The way I see there's like 3 possibilities for what Deebo wants as far as like touches go. Like, well, the money situation is a whole like different like side of things. We can talk about whether or not he like deserves a contract or not, or whether or not they lowball. Well, we're going to assume that he was offered a contract and he just denied it, right? For the sake of argument here.
The reports are that he's been kind of, instead of like maybe engaging in negotiations, he's just like kind of been quick to demand a trade. Because again, he's under contract. Like there's a long time to negotiate a deal here, and he's already like, nope, not interested. I just want to. Like
he could go through the season and negotiate a deal.
Right. This is like the time you start. I guess maybe I don't know this. I'm not like an expert in contract, but it seems like this would be a time to kind of start negotiations instead of
this is the year
end negotiations.
This is year 3, right?
Yes.
I don't know. That's usually when I see quarterbacks, like when we get the quarterback, like, Lamar Jackson starting to talk to the Ravens about a contract. Josh, like that's
you're seeing it from all the wide receivers in this draft class too. McLaurin, AJ Brown, DK, like all these guys have had kind of trade rumors surrounding them. But it's not like, I don't think all 4 are going to get traded, you know, I mean, like this is all 4 of them are probably in the process of this contract negotiation. Deebo's the only one who's demanded a trade, you know? So I think he's being slightly silly. I mean, I get your money, Deebo. I get that, but like, damn,
from a player perspective,
you don't need it. Like, I don't know. I just think it's a little silly what he's up to right now. I don't really see it. Like,
I see there's 3 possibilities for why he would want to be traded as far as like on the field things. He's not getting enough touches, right? And so that could be like he saw like, I could have won Offensive Player of the Year if you had given me 100, if you'd given me 200 touches. But that seems like a lot, right? Like no receiver is getting that many touches. Cooper Kupp had the Triple Crown, and I don't even think he had 150, right?
I don't know. Yeah. It does not seem like Deebo thinks his role is too small, right? That is not what's going. It's not like a Stephon Diggs situation. I don't think that's
insanely likely. What I don't think is likely, he'd be the first receiver ever. We talked about this in the group chat to just want less touches, right?
Yes.
Like
yes. The whole idea that like,
I don't think that's reasonable either.
I want the ball less, like I don't
buy that.
That running back touches take, could increase your risk of injury.
So that brings to the third one. I think is he just wants smarter touches. Maybe he feels that like, yeah, it might be a perfectly crafted role, but maybe he feels like the scheme in which that role is being used,
which is again
is
a
wrong.
Stupid case because they went to the NFC Championship game and Deebo had a fantastic season. So like, I don't understand what the problem with the role is. I guess like I just don't. I get it. Like you maybe want less running back touches to take less wear and tear off your body or more wear and tear off your body, but at the same time, you're also a member of the team, and what's asked of you is kind of what you signed up for, like again, especially a guy who has bragged about being the most versatile wide receiver. And it just doesn't make sense to me. This trade request does not check out in my brain as being like super reasonable from Deebo Samuel, unless it's exclusively a money thing, which I get. And you should ask for as much money as possible from these organizations. But at the same time, like, it's so early in the process of when he needs to get paid, and like that final bell, like it's just a little soon,
I think that if it doesn't make any sense, then there's probably something we don't know.
Yeah.
Like he's probably not just really dumb and he's like requesting a trade for no reason, and he's mad at his role for no reason. Like I agree. I can't even think of a reason why he would be mad at his role, but there has to be one.
Yeah. I guess it's like the wear and tear thing, but it's like he got 59 carries last year. And again, if you're uncomfortable with that, have they tried to work this out with Shanahan, Because I feel like the coach would be like, okay, we can make that work. It's like, you don't need to get off the team. It's not that hard to just like, don't play me there. Play Elijah Mitchell there instead. Play Trey Sermon there instead, And
I think that like, that's sort of assuming that Deebo is the bad guy because he requested the trade. No,
right.
It's like, wouldn't Deebo just go talk to Kyle Shanahan? It's like, well, wouldn't Kyle Shanahan just fix the offense then? I think that like, maybe it is just a contract thing. I wouldn't be, if it was me in his shoes.
That would be my bet, is it's just a contract. He wants to get paid immediately.
Right. Like I wouldn't, if I knew I could go get $80 million guaranteed or like whatever, right? Whatever the number is, I would not risk like a fluke Achilles tear all of a sudden. Then I have to prove myself I'm never the same and I lost out on the money because I didn't want to be aggressive enough with negotiations. I would be so anxious about getting that deal done, getting the money 100% guaranteed, and then I'd be fine. But I'd be doing it as soon as I possibly could too.
Right, especially for a guy who was injured a lot in college and a guy who was injured all of last year. You may want to get paid as soon as possible. So that's the angle that I think makes the most sense. I think like, the role to me is just maybe some BS to make it like give a reason that isn't just money. I don't know. There was like his brother saying like, oh, we're demanding a trade. And then like, oh, all that matters is he won't be a 49er next year. And then he posted later on his story like, oh, I have no idea what my brother is doing. To me, that kind of felt like his brother being loose-lipped, and then maybe Deebo's agent being like, shut the hell up. And then he just like, oh, just kidding. I don't think that was actually like a just kidding.
I can't disagree with that.
People tend to like take the story of like whatever someone said last instead of what someone said first, when I feel like usually what someone said first is probably the more likely thing instead of the PR.
We always say, don't second guess yourself. Go with your gut. on our takes. So,
but I don't think he's getting traded. That's my take. I think that the 49ers are going to say, I don't think, because it's 8 days until the draft. I don't think that he's getting moved in the next 8 days. I don't. I think the 49ers I think he's a very crucial part to their team. He's a big cog in their plans. I think they kind of think the same thing as us, where it's like, well, Deebo, like, let's hold on here a minute and see if we can work something out. I think that's probably the mentality that GM has, is like, we have months and months and months until week 1. Let's see if there's some time to work. I mean, he's 24. I mean, Adams had already signed a contract. That guy's 28 and had made millions of dollars off a rookie deal. Hill, same deal. Deebo's a little bit younger than them and maybe not in a place where they can hold out as long. I don't know if that makes sense, but I would guess that he is not going to get traded actually after all of this.
You're probably right.
I think that with Deebo, it's tough to trade him because number one, you're a competitive team now. Like, you're trying to win right now.
Right.
Number two, it's not like you would just need another receiver. You'd need another guy who can do what Deebo Samuel does. And you're not going to be able to find
Treylon Burks can kind of do it. He kind of did that in college. Christian Watson can also kind of do it. So I actually kind of disagree with that. I think you can find. I don't
think you would be able to get that type of production.
Not that type of production, but someone who can fill it to a reasonable extent. I don't know, but I agree. Deebo's a total beast. Yeah. You're not going to find another offensive player of the year candidate just lying out on the ground somewhere in the second round or late first or whatever.
Yeah. No, at the end of he's probably not going to get traded. If he did, here's the thing though.
If he did, Patriots, I like the Patriots as a place. I think Mac Jones is not someone who's going to create a lot of they need some explosives, explosive plays. Mac Jones and that wide receiving core is not run around and air it out. He's going to have all these passes 30 plus yards down the field. So a yak guy like Deebo, he's in the AFC. That to me is a place that makes some sense. Bill Belichick has been aggressive last offseason, couldn't really be aggressive this offseason, but they have no fear of trading for wide receivers. They've done it a lot in their time. At least Belichick has. So that's a place I would say is maybe my number one option. Packers, they're not trading him in the NFC to a contender. Jets, maybe that makes a lot of sense. But if he's mad at Shanahan and that offense, maybe he would be mad at the Jets.
To the same offense,
same thing.
The team that I think might be kind of a sleeper, and mostly because they have the assets to do it, and they could use another guy, is Philly. If that, and cool. Again, maybe the role might be a problem there as well. But they have 3 first-round picks.
I could see that just because they've had so much trouble drafting a guy. Kind of same thing with the Patriots, where it's man, I know the money thing is going to be big, but we've had so much trouble drafting receivers. If we spend a first-round pick on Deebo, there's worse things. At least we know we're getting a guy who's game-changing.
Yeah, right. And Jalen Hurts is on a rookie deal, and he won't be for that much longer. I could see Philly too. Bears, they need some help. The Bears should I get
first in line, man.
That they don't maybe want to go all in on something, but they need some talent. They have no talent on that team right now, 0. So I don't know how they would do it without a first round pick, but they should do something to maybe get that done and have a little bit of hope for Justin Fields, because at this moment he is kind of screwed. But yeah.
Well, according to Ian Rappaport, teams that are considered in the trade market are Jets, Packers, Chiefs, and Lions.
Chiefs don't make sense. If they wanted to pay a wide receiver,
they would have just paid Tyreek.
They would have just paid Tyreek Hill. Packers, it makes sense, but would they actually the 49ers trade a player to another NFC contender? I would guess no. Lions, maybe. That would be cool. It would be a kind of out of left field thing, but they got to be a contender eventually here. They've got, I don't know if they would part with a number 2 overall pick, but if you were to add Deebo and a second overall player, You know, you could talk yourself into them being good pretty soon.
They have another first. They could trade that one.
They could trade that one.
If they traded that pick, and I don't know what else, San Francisco would want, that would pretty much lock them in at taking a quarterback second overall.
It would, which would be a reach. So
it would be a reach, but I think that would be the pick at that point. And
if you're the Lions, you got to feel like the NFC North is relatively open. That is not the strongest division at this moment. So maybe it's the time to be aggressive, make some moves. So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't think he's going to get traded, but there are some locations that would make some sense. Again, there's a lot of good wide receivers out there. I think it's one of the positions that has the most high-level players at. So supply is at an all-time high. Demand is also, supply is at an all-time high, and they also cost the most they ever have. So the market's kind of out of whack with them, which is why you're going to see maybe some disagreement between players and teams on what they're actually worth, and you'll see a lot of movement is what I think. I
don't know. I think that wide receivers are appropriately paid right now.
I disagree. $30 million for one is rough when there's probably 15, 16 of them you could justify taking on day one or day two. Julio, Will Fuller, Odell, Jarvis Landry's all in free agency.
I think serviceable, the gap between serviceable and the top guys is really big, and that's what creates that big payment. It's like, well, there's so many guys I could take on day one or day two. Why would I ever take Jamar Chase at 5? But then the Bengals do it, and having one of those top tier guys is definitely like a big advantage.
Fair. Yeah, Jamar Chase totally changed that game. Changed all of that for them. So I could see that, but at the same time, it's like, man, 30 million is a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
We haven't seen a team win a Super Bowl with a quarterback who's getting paid like a certain percentage of their cap. And when you get wide receivers starting to hit that kind of number, it really gives me a lot of pause when there's a lot of good ones in the draft.
But you can't just
every single year.
I feel like you can't just not. I don't know. I
think you got to start. I think those are conversations that teams are going to have to start having here pretty soon. Like how much. I think we're kind of starting to jump the shark with some of these top heavy quarterback contracts. Even I think we're going to see a day come where these quarterback contracts may not be worth it, and people will say, "Oh, the cap isn't real." Oh, then why isn't Deebo Samuel under contract? Why is Tyreek Hill somewhere else then? If you think that, when you have a big quarterback contract, you do have to part with some pretty good players. So
I think you're seeing it now. I mean, if the money was no big deal, Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, we wouldn't be talking about them. They don't have extensions right now. Those teams those teams are very, very nervous, and it's such a tough call to make. Like, it is going to take the first team to do it and be right for it to really catch on. But eventually a team will have a perceived borderline top 10 quarterback, and they won't pay them, and they won't do it.
Yeah, the closest thing we've seen is Cousins. That's the closest thing we've seen to it. And I think one of these days we're going to see a huge quarterback hit free agency. And whether that be Kyler or Lamar, I don't know if is those two. Those are the two prime candidates right now. We'll see. But it'll be really interesting when it happens.
You know what else is prime, I would say? Or maybe I should say
what, Bladen?
Prize. As in PrizePicks, where they make daily fantasy easy. And I love this. I know you guys will too. PrizePicks offers more NBA props than any other DFS operator and offers every player and stat category you can think of. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. PrizePicks allows mixed sport entries. So, for example, you could take the over on Steph Curry, and you can combine it with the under on Aaron Judge in the same entry. And users that deposit and use our promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just be sure to use the promo code STAYHOT. So don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code STAYHOT, or go to your app store and download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, where they make fantasy easy. And that brings us to NBA. And our apologies, we didn't talk about, the Grizzlies and Timberwolves first game, especially with the Timberwolves getting a game.
Right.
Yeah, in our defense, not much to say about that series, really.
People, did you see the
been so
comments on the
boring.
last? Did you see the comments on the last?
I did.
It was hard not to.
It was hard not to. I did try to comment and say like, "Hey, we did talk about it. We just got cut for technical
I made sure to
difficulties."
pin that so people could see it.
So let's talk about it now in extra amount. It's 1-1 as we speak. We had that surprising game 1 win in Memphis for Minnesota. Anthony Edwards continued his hot streak and had a big game. And yeah, that was kind of the big. I mean, there's more to say than that, but that was kind of the big story of game 1. It's like, whoa, we've got the big 3 in Minnesota, like D'Lo, Cat, Anthony Edwards. Like those are 3 scorers, and the Grizzlies kind of only have 1 kind of big star. So after they won the first game, it's like, okay, if the Timberwolves big 3 are firing on all cylinders in this game, will the Grizzlies really have the firepower to keep up with that? But then in game 2, D'Lo looked a little bit more human. Anthony Edwards looked a little more human, and the Grizzlies won by 30. Matt, what were your kind of big thoughts on how this series is shaped up so far going into Minnesota here?
I mean, you went to game 1, and I think the scary thing was not that the Grizzlies lost a close one. I don't think anybody had like Memphis in 4, right?
Right.
But it's the fact that in game 1, the Grizzlies never had a handle on it. And it just felt like, man, does Minnesota just have more firepower? And then all of a sudden, like if you start thinking about it, you can make yourself really nervous. It's like on paper, it's this D'Lo and Anthony Edwards, and Anthony Edwards kind of looks like he's doing a lot of the stuff Ja's doing, and there's Karl Anthony Towns on the Timberwolves too, and Steven Adams isn't doing a good job handling him, and then all of a sudden it gets really stressful, and
you can see the path very clearly.
You're like, oh my God,
right here is the blueprint. It's like Anthony Edwards and Ja kind of are pound for pound, like similar caliber performances. And then the T-Wolves have the more, like the better role players, or at least more star power in the role players. That was the path. And then game 2 happened.
And then the problem is that series are not 1 game, they're 7. And you can't just take what you see in the first game 100% at face value. Although I'm not sitting here saying I don't overreact to every single game, because I do and I will. But adjustments were made. Taylor Jenkins is a great coach. And the big thing was, okay, Steven Adams cannot be on the court in the playoffs, I'm afraid. Bless his heart. It's just he gets played off the court pretty easily. And that's exactly what happened, because what's the point of having that physical interior defensive threat if he's going to get pulled out of the interior by a 5 who can shoot and then isn't quick enough to handle him on the perimeter, because that's going to break down absolutely everything for the defense. And the thing is that the Grizzlies have the facilities to go and not play Adams, because they have Xavier Tillman, who did a good job, and they have obviously Jaren Jackson Jr. So making that adjustment, I don't know how much Adams played, but making that adjustment made them better suited to handle the Timberwolves offense. And it also made them quicker and allowed them to sort of get out and transition easier.
Yeah, the transition buckets in the second game were ridiculous. I mean, it was high flying, especially that second half. It was just Timberwolves were in hell. But the same way you can't overreact to game 1, I think you also can't overreact to game 2, even though game 2 is a little bit more of what we expected. Down the stretch, I mean, Minnesota at the end of the day, they went into Memphis and they stole one, right? So, yes. So there can be games in the future where it's the same type of deal and Anthony Edwards looks just as good, every bit as good as Ja Morant, because Anthony Edwards is, I think, really bona fide. And you look at what he's done in his first 2 years, and he's on lists with LeBron and Carmelo Anthony and Luka Doncic in terms of like his scoring prowess at his age. So I'm a big Anthony Edwards fan, and he can look like the best player on the court at times. Just like he did in maybe game 1, or maybe if he wasn't the best, like the second or third best, like a bona fide like superstar. So just because it was a 30-point win, you still have to take the Timberwolves seriously, because they did get the one. Yeah. But the Grizzlies have the biggest win in the history of the NBA. This year's Grizzlies are the owners of that. They are the owners of a 55-point quarter, which happened quite recently. So even though they don't maybe have the second option that sticks out as like an all-star or like one of the best players in the NBA, like the Timberwolves have, they still have the firepower to put up a lot of points really, really quickly. And it doesn't come in the form of one all-star player, but in their depth and just in their coaching and in a lot of the littler things that aren't quite so obvious.
Right. Well, the big thing for them is they got to slow it down a little bit. They cannot let the Grizzlies get out ahead like this, because the thing, what makes them so difficult to deal with when I watch them, it'll be like they'll run out, they'll get a bucket, and their defense is also so tough, and it's easy to get frustrated and out of sync, and you're not playing at your own pace. And the second you start playing at their pace, they're gonna beat you. If you want, make the Grizzlies beat you in half court, and they can, but don't let Ja get a full head of steam, or at least do your best to stop him from doing that.
Right.
Because some of the stuff he was doing was just ridiculous.
He tried it too. Like, he could have had some more highlights that were even more devastating. He tried to rise up and yam on some guys. And the thing about Ja Morant is he is the greatest almost highlight reel of all time. And he was going for it, that big poster in the second game too. He's got to be careful, though. He's had a lot of awkward landings and even more. He always does, but I feel like even more than usual in this series, he's kind of been amped up a little bit and landing weird and just flying into the paint like he's a bullet. I don't know how that's a bad simile. Like he's flying into the paint like he's a bird.
That's on brand.
Yeah, I don't know.
But no, I mean, I agree.
He's got to be careful. And he always has to be careful, but especially in this series, I've been like, damn, man, you are falling on your face. You're falling on your neck, falling on your knees. What are you doing?
That's, everyone keeps saying, like, that he reminds them of
D Rose.
Derrick Rose. And that's the scary thing.
It's something you've heard so much where it's like, oh my goodness.
It's never like really happened, but
I think, I don't know. I think that's sort of his play style, and some guys are able to last like that, and some guys aren't.
Yeah.
I'm not
Vince Carter.
I'm not going to say.
I didn't watch him. I guess I didn't know if Vince Carter quite landed like Ja Morant does, but Vince Carter played for a long time, and he was dunking on everybody.
Right.
I guess we just had to hope that Ja Morant has really strong knees.
We do. Although he did miss 20-something games this year, so there's that. But
I don't know.
At any rate, I have the Grizzlies winning this series. I don't think the Timberwolves, again, they have the big three, but the Grizzlies, again, they don't have a big three, but their depth is crazy. They've been one of the best teams in the league post All-Star break.
Player in the series.
I still think they do have the best player in the series in Ja Morant, although the Timberwolves have three guys, or at least two guys, who are not that crazy far behind him. But they're just too quick, too good on defense. They're just fast, and the Timberwolves are a little inexperienced, and I don't think their depth is quite as good overall. So that's how I feel about it. But I think the Timberwolves will get another game on them, or maybe even two, but
they might. The important thing with Minnesota is that they got the one on the road. Right? That is an important part of like winning a series as an underdog. Something the Hawks,
I don't think they're going to get swept.
Something the Hawks have not been able to do is get one of those like close games on the road.
That's not. Oh yes, yes.
Because if you want to transition into Hawks, just because they're my underdog pick.
It's not looking great, Blaiden.
It's not. And I was feeling good in game two because in the second quarter they had a lot of control. I felt like they had the lead for a lot of that second quarter. The last 20 seconds of that like half was gross.
They're the 8th seed, man. They're the 8th seed playing the 1 seed. And if you got Bubble Jimmy playing like he's playing, and you got Bam Adebayo, who is agile enough to take away your big man and also agile and quick enough to get out on the perimeter and guard these 3-point shots. He's just been wreaking havoc on them on the defensive end, not so much on the offensive end, but he's been a great piece for the Heat. Jimmy Butler's playing like Jimmy Butler. And again, I love this Heat team. I really do. And their big problem is like, can they score? And
The answer is
so
yes.
far they've been the Hawks defense is not that good, but you've got Jimmy Butler
But the
knocking
Hawks
down
are a team that's also supposed to be able to like do some stuff offensively, and if you can go toe to toe with that.
Difference is the Heat are an elite defensive team, and the Hawks are not. So we'll see.
Hawks,
but
I almost wonder if the Hawks would benefit from trying to slow things down a little bit. They're a team that likes to play fast, and that works against other teams, but it is killing them right now against the Heat.
I don't know, dude. I just don't think they have the facilities to match up against the Heat
man,
in a four-game series. Sometimes it's just not more complicated than that. I think Trae Young has to probably do more than you can expect one guy to do. He's been inefficient because, he's drawn a lot of attention, and that defense is not only talented but smart. And they're not going to just let you they're not going to just have to throw two guys at Trae Young, and I hope he has to make a pass, and the guy, it's like how we see some other teams who can't defend try to beat Trae. So I'm not surprised. It's it's impressive that they were able to get there from the 9 seed, but what are you going to do? This is the one. This is the 1 seed you're going up against. Trae doesn't have a serious second option. They're not serious on defense.
Let's talk about Embiid, because he hit a turnaround 3 to win game 3 and bring it to 3-0 against the Raptors. I picked the Raptors to win this series in 7 games.
It's Theo's underdog,
and unless
they win 4 straight, that's not going to happen. So not feeling great about that. But I stand by my analysis before, where it's there was a lot of things maybe going into this series that could potentially worry the 76ers, and that the Raptors have done historically a pretty good job on Joel Embiid, Thibault being out for the games at Canada, Doc Rivers, his history of maybe choking some of these playoff, when he has something in the bag, sometimes he'll choke it away. The Raptors being one of the hottest teams in basketball down the stretch and working their way up to not only avoiding the play-in, but actually passing the Bulls and being the 5th seed. They were super hot. And I just Harden playing poorly coming down the stretch, and it really hasn't even turned it on in this series yet, really. So there was kind of a bunch of things that I thought were sort of working against Philly. It hasn't mattered. They're up 3-0. Despite the fact that Harden, it has not been Harden, and despite the 3-point shot, it hasn't been Harden and Embiid just total masterclasses 3 games straight. They've been deep. Maxi's played really well. Obviously had a huge game 1. And you got to feel good if you're the Sixers, if you can get up 3-0 on this hot Raptors team without even looking like you're at the peak of your powers. Although I guess the concern is if you're not at the peak, this is the time to be at the peak of your powers. So I'd rather look like it. But at any rate, Philly.
I don't know. I think the crazy thing is Philly was getting beat in this game, in game 2.
Yeah, Raptors kind of choked this one for sure, but they still won.
Yeah, that's the thing is if you can be oh, well, the Raptors choked, or you could look at it as, well, no, the Sixers were down 17 and they came back to hit a game winner in overtime.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know. You can talk about not being at the peak, but if you're able to, make stuff like that happen, I think that's just as good.
I'm talking it more in Harden had 19 points. He was set for, that's not a horrible game. Harden did not play horrible this game, but there has been no Harden takeover, and they're still up 3-0. And Embiid, he had a great game. He had 33 points, but he has not, I think that's his first 30-point game of this series. I know he only had 15 game 1. So that's kind of more what I mean. It's not like Embiid and Harden have been carrying and they're still up this much. So that's what I mean, and we'll see. Nick Nurse, he's been sending those doubles at Embiid, but that when you do that, that leaves someone else open. The price you pay,
Yep. I mean, Embiid's to the point where he's very, very dangerous because throwing a double, you have to be able to guard him at least semi-honestly, or at least the Raptors have not figured out how not to, because they cannot actually take him one-on-one. And he has a perimeter game, so there's no hiding anywhere. There's no maybe we can force him here. None of that. He's got the entire post game in his arsenal too, and then he can pass out of doubles very, very well.
He's one of the top 5 players in the league right now. Yeah.
And on top of that, the 76ers have Harris and Maxey and enough shooters and Harden. So it's not like there's the Simmons to take defensive attention away from this year. So there's just nowhere to hide with the 76ers. And the Raptors have a lot of good defenders, and they have a very good coach. And outside of just denying him, trying to deny him beat the ball and fouling him and hoping that the refs just get sick of calling so many fouls, which, you would think eventually might actually happen. I don't think there's really any way for a team that doesn't have a guy who can match up with him reasonably one-on-one to stop him.
Yeah, and also the 49ers, the 76ers are shooting the lights out, shooting above 40% from 3 in each game. They were up to 50% one of the games, 47%. This was actually their worst 3-point shooting game, and they still shot 41%, which is nothing to shake a stick at. And of course, hit that ridiculous turnaround 3 to win the game and get some revenge for the Kawhi Leonard, of course, that Raptors shot that happened a couple years back. And you could tell how much that meant to Embiid. I think that's the most emotion I've ever seen him show after hitting that shot. They were going nuts and deservedly so.
Other than crying in the tunnel.
Crying in the tunnel, that slander video, that slander gif of him walking down the tunnel crying.
The most hype videos, the Embiid hype videos after this, gonna go crazy.
The most hype I've ever seen Embiid was hitting that shot, which is probably the biggest shot of his life, so it makes sense. But you could really good for the Sixers to kind of exercise that demon and maybe get one back on these Raptors here. And again, kind of seemed like a trap series for them, one that could be a rare upset in a 7-game series. You don't see them happen all that often, and it just has been completely the opposite. So shout out the Philadelphia 76ers.
Shout out the Philadelphia 76ers. Also shout out your NBA champion pick, Golden State Warriors.
Yeah. And we got to talk about the Suns too, with Devin Booker out for the next 2-3 weeks, which is not fun. Man, Warriors, what's the PTSD lineup? Poole, Thompson, Steph, Draymond, and then Wiggins is just the silent W at the end. But what are they? Their offensive rating is like 120. Their defensive rating is like 70 so far in these playoffs or whatever with that lineup. They dropped 70 points in 19 minutes in game 2 against the Nuggets. I think that's a game that's happening tonight, right? So by the time you listen to this podcast, things might be a little bit different, but from my point of view right now, this is the scariest team in basketball. They're like I said, I've said this before, but you see their defensive ceiling. You see their offensive ceiling with the wings that they've got, and Draymond being one of the best defensive players in basketball, and Poole turning it on and playing like an all-star over the past couple months, and Clay looking healthy and hitting all these threes, and Curry's getting back. He had a good game coming off the bench as the world's scariest 6-man. And man, it's just tough. It's tough for me to see how they aren't maybe the most dangerous team in basketball with the Suns, 1-1 on the Pelicans, Devin Booker having a hamstring injury that's going to keep him out and maybe linger after that. I want very badly to be wrong. I would love the Suns to pull this off, and we'll talk about them. And I think they still can. I think that they could still win this series without Booker, but man, Warriors scary. Warriors good. Nuggets, Jokic, kind of looks gassed. They're doing a good job defending him. Matt, you're our Jokic guy, so
one man can only do so much.
Matt, I demand you as our number one Jokic fan to defend that fraud's playoff performance, because he should be stripped of his MVP for this abysmal showing. That's what they're saying.
Giannis, LeBron. Best believe the Nuggets would be up 2-0 right now. I'm sick to my stomach throwing up watching Jokic not drop 70 and win.
Yeah.
Sell.
He's selling.
I think not giving him this Embiid is too little. If he's getting swept, you can't even get one game. No, take away his other MVP too. Actually, not allowed to play in the NBA anymore. But no, like the Nuggets don't have the ammo. And I was like, if Curry's hurt, and no, Nuggets don't have the ammo. They don't. They don't. And not only is Jokic being attacked on defense, which doesn't help, but like he has to do so much on offense that he's going to get gassed on that end, and then it's even easier to attack him on defense. The Warriors have been shooting really great. They've been really, really impressive, but it does almost feel like you're seeing them go up against half a team. Like even some of the lower seeds, I know they ended up with like a worse regular season record, but would you like the Timberwolves odds to get a game against the Warriors better? Absolutely. Yeah. It just doesn't feel like, it just feels like the Nuggets, if you're getting in a 7-game series, it's too easy to game plan around, you know?
Man, Jokic is, they're guarding Jokic like one-on-one, right? And they're clogging up his passing lanes, right? They're like, we are just going to let him, if he wants to take it to the basket and cook and shoot, we're going to let him do that. But we're not going to let him kind of create and play make, and we're going to make him do this by himself, which maybe you wouldn't do to someone like LeBron James. Maybe you wouldn't do that to someone like, well, we'll talk about Kevin Durant. But Jokic, what makes him so valuable isn't so much his 1v1 takeover ability. So it's been a good strategy. And he's minus. He's in the minuses. His plus minus is negative. So
the Warriors have decided that if the Nuggets are going to beat them, Jokic has to drop 70. Right. Your Jokic just has to take over. We're gonna live with like whoever's on Jokic and let him shoot. And we'll live like if Jokic drops 30, okay, we'll live with that. Like
it's not the strategy of we're gonna send everybody. It's not like the Raptors strategy on Embiid where it's like, oh, let's make someone else beat us. Right. We need to take away Embiid.
But and it's just LeBron against the Warriors, right? He's dropping 51.
Well, yeah, and they still lost. It's like we've seen LeBron lose to a stacked Warriors team with no help, and no one says like, "Oh, LeBron's washed. LeBron is bad. LeBron's overrated." But when it happens to Embiid, no, you really didn't. I mean, people talk about some of those LeBron performances in the finals, like they're the greatest of all time, which they are.
They are.
And Embiid's not having like the greatest series of all time, but again, he's overmatched and facing a really good Warriors team. And what Jokic has done is what Jokic has done. And the good far outweighs the bad with him. And he, in my opinion, still, obviously the votes were due before this series even happened. So it's silly to even talk about it, but he still,
this is a regular season award. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And no, but like, if you're sitting here telling me that like, You've seen it. You've seen the best players ever get swept, even if because their team's bad, it happens.
Right.
How is he the MVP if he's getting swept? You know the answer to that question. You know why. You know exactly why, because the MVP is a regular season award. The rest of his team isn't very good. They got a lot of regular season wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why. So, Embiid, like I do get the argument for Embiid MVP, and it's like, I would almost argue that maybe he has bigger fish to fry right now than getting the MVP award if they're really serious about contending. And
he does.
That he could. It doesn't mean he can't, do some other stuff, improve some stuff, and he'll be, hopefully he'll be first team All NBA. Although if he gets screwed out of that, then we got something to talk about.
Yeah,
but
Embiid or whoever you want to say is not joining this Nuggets team and beating the Warriors the way they're playing right now. Straight up, simple as that. LeBron's not, Luke is not, Giannis isn't. Like by himself, I just don't think that it's possible. Maybe they could do a little bit, but I could see the argument that like, oh, if you put Giannis on this Nuggets team, maybe they would be doing better. But again, it's a 2-game sample size we're talking about. So
right.
Jokic slander.
If you put me on the Nuggets, we'd win the series. That's all I know.
If we put BLAIDEN BLAIDEN on
BLAIDEN.
If we put prime maybe BLAIDEN now, maybe not, but prime BLAIDEN is
BLAIDEN now. We're getting 2 games at least, but prime BLAIDEN, we're winning it all, no question about it. What
else? We didn't talk about. Oh, the other one that people didn't care about as much as they did Timberwolves Grizzlies, but I think that also got cut out for technical difficulties. Was talking about the Mavs Jazz series.
Yeah.
So we should talk about that one a little bit. The Jazz, we talked about this on the NBA Live, and everybody knows how screwed they are going forward. But it's looking, I mean, this has been like the encapsulation of everything wrong with them. Like their problems have just been so obvious and glaring when it comes to like losing because they let up 16 open threes when their perimeter defense is just getting blown by. Gobert has to obviously step into the paint and then they just kick it out. It like that's their whole issue. Right. It's like that, and small ball can win against them. So they have not been taking care of business against a Luka-less Mavs team, and it's embarrassing.
Luka,
really,
I just got the notification from Woj is officially ruled out for tonight.
Yeah, and he should be. Like it would have been with an injury like this. Would have been dumb to play him 1-1. Yeah, let's see if we can go get one without him. You don't feel like you can't win without him right now.
Absolutely.
So I would say. Yeah, I would say that's got to be probably, unless Luka comes back and is like just completely not himself, unless that happens, or unless something changes drastically with the Jazz, it's just not in the cards. I don't think they have there is not an adjustment to make, I don't think.
I think there's
outside of better rotations.
I think there's a world where Luka misses game 3 and misses game 4 and misses game 5. Fact that he's ruled out of game 3 here, it could be like Booker, a little bit where they were like, oh, he might miss the next 2 games, and now, he might miss 2-3 weeks. So I think there's a world where Luka doesn't play at all this series. That's just about the only hope that the Jazz have, and I don't think that's like an unreasonable universe to imagine, but
no, I mean, if we get to a point where the Mavericks go up 2-1, right, or if
they go up 2-1, man,
if they continue to be up in this series, right, like if we're in game 6 and it's 3-2, the only way I think he comes back is if they're like tied at game 7 3-3. I think at that point, then maybe they might be like,
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But
if they keep stacking
the Luka-less Mavs have a very real chance. I mean, unless they like the Jazz like learn how to have good perimeter defense, which they haven't learned in years, like every team will have a chance to beat them in these playoffs because you just need some shooters. And Brunson can clearly shoot. He dropped 40 with 0 turnovers. Max Akliba had 7, 8 threes? I think he had 8 threes and 7 of them were uncontested. He didn't shoot a single 2-pointer. The Mavericks have shooters everywhere. Dinwiddie can shoot. So all that needs to happen, and there's really no way for the Jazz to prevent this, is like they win their one-on-one battles on the perimeter, kick it inside. Everybody has to get in. You kick it out. Like they just are liabilities out on the perimeter, and it's how you beat the Jazz. This is known. It's happened for a long time now. Yeah.
And it's a mix. It's really both. Usually this is the case when it comes to like, whose fault is it? Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert? It's both. It's a little bit of both, right? It's like, it's so easy to go small ball against Rudy Gobert. That's like, the Jazz have terrible rotations. Yes, their perimeter defense is bad. And yes, they are going at Donovan Mitchell late in the game for sure. Back-to-back possessions, they'd go at him. But at the same time, if Gobert could be a little bit more of a threat on offense, then you would be able to drag him out, right? Or you wouldn't be able to get him out of the paint so easily and stuck in the corner, and then that messes everything up because there's no threat of going small ball against him. I'm interested to see, like, it's still a 1-1 series, and the Mavericks' best player is hurt. Yeah. But it's just like, it really does feel like a matter of win for the Jazz. It's like, if you can't take care of business, and they also didn't look good in game 1. Like this should be it for the Mavs if they don't have Luka in the playoffs. That should be no contest if they're, playing a team that's serious about making a run and being competitive.
Right. If it's not now for the Jazz, it's like very clearly next round. They're not playing finals winning basketball. And just like from a mentality standpoint, like what have they got to be thinking? Like with all the leads they've blown, not only this season, but in playoffs in the past, and they come out this year and they look flat in the playoffs, and you can just kind of, the Mavs are kind of playing, what's it called? Wounded tiger syndrome. When you lose your best guy, everybody else kind of steps up. Yeah. The Mavs are kind of playing like that right now, and they're kind of rallying for Luka, and the Jazz are just kind of like, what can their mentality be? We choke every year. We've choked this year 1 million times, and now we're 1-1 on this Mavs series. Like, they've got to think, like, how can they find it within themselves to be like, we're going on a run. We're winning this series, the next series, the series after that, and then the final. Like, it just is, or in the back of their minds, are they thinking like, how many years are we going to do this? How many times is this going to happen? Like, that's kind of what it sounds like, or what it seems like the Jazz have to be thinking, instead of like, this is our year. Like, we're going to go make this, stay focused, and go win the whole thing. And they got to think like, they almost have got to be thinking like, how many years is this going to happen to us before something big changes? So, and that's not the mentality that you want to have.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about teams that, are making or are playing, at a high level right now. The Celtics.
Yes, let's talk about Cade.
Caught the Nets on an absolute atrocity of a night, and given the Celtics also just played good defense, but Kevin Durant, second half, 0 for 10. 5
turnovers, I believe, as well. 4 or 5 turnovers.
Damn.
It's on Kevin Durant and Kyrie, I'm afraid. There is just, and they were saying this a million times during the broadcast, and I can't help but agree, lack of adjustments. Maybe that's not on Kevin Durant and Kyrie, but you cannot let them force you. What the Celtics were just packing the paint. They're saying, they had those guys ready to come in and help if Kevin Durant or Kyrie tried to drive in, especially Kevin Durant. And they'd say, okay, if you drive in, we've got guys there. So you have to take mid-rangers. And then the guy actually on ball is like, I know he's not going to drive in, or if he does, I trust my guys have my back. I'm going to play I'm going to play as pressed up as I can. I'm going to go.
They were letting him put the ball on the ground. They were not letting him like dribble. They were, usually you would not do that on Kevin Durant because, they just
you can't
blow right by you.
And they were and those guys, they'd have like 2 guys waiting on the wing, and any opportunity, if Kevin Durant didn't took a second to think or put the ball anywhere where they could get after it, they would go and attack, and they did a great job of that. And the Nets have other guys. I mean, Goran, he has like 35, 40 points, somewhere around there in this series already, just through 2 games. And he got bought out this season. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. And Seth Curry, and it's just the Nets don't have the ball movement to counter that, because the Celtics, I think, had a pretty similar problem where all of a sudden the 2 big stars aren't playing, but they moved the ball a lot better. They're not so reliant on like Jason Tatum, please go score, Jaylen Brown, please go score. And with the Nets, it's like, if your offensive strategy is Kevin Durant, please go score, Kyrie, go figure something out, you're going to win a lot of games. Like, it's not a terrible strategy. Right, no. That's why they're in the playoffs, but it's not looking great. It's not looking great. They got to adjust. They have the talent to beat this defense, but it's an uphill battle.
Yeah. Now they've got to win 4 in 6 games.
4 out of the next 5.
4 of the next 5. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, not happening in my opinion. I know it's going back to Brooklyn, but Celtics, again, Eastern Conference Finals pick, have been since January for me. They're like that, man. I don't know if I've ever seen a team in hell like the Nets in that fourth quarter, and they were winning going into that fourth quarter, so they can take that as like,
what's crazy about it
is like, maybe they can take that as like, hey, we just need to tighten up a little bit. That's been 2 games where it's been games deep in the fourth quarter against this 2 seed. There's obvious things we can do better. And like, even though we've been playing with obvious things that we can do better, we've still made a game twice in the fourth quarter. So if you're the Nets, that's what you're thinking, is like, we are this close to turning this around. We just have such an obvious thing that needs to be better. And it's Kevin Durant. And it's someone who you can feel good about, turning it around because he's KD. But man, like,
narratives are going to be out of control if they lose this one.
Listen, if Durant doesn't turn it around and they lose, he's gonna.
If Durant doesn't turn it around, they lose, and the Warriors win it all. It's like it could get ugly fast. I'm afraid.
Like you guys saw the Kevin Durant memes after that last loss, bro.
The screenshot of him like bent at the weird angle trying to defend.
Have you seen the video of it and the camera like pans away?
He thought it was going to be easy. Yeah. No, it's Kevin Durant is going to have to, we know that he defends himself on Twitter pretty frequently. He's going to be having to work overtime if he doesn't turn around in the last 2 games. But although that being said, even if Durant does choke this series, like I think Durant, I don't know how much his legacy is on the line at this point. I think everybody understands that he's one of the best scorers of all time and best offensive threats of all time. And, nothing is ever going to take that away from Durant at this point. He definitely could use a ring that is not
Mickey Mouse.
that is not coming from a Warriors like super duper ultra team. He could definitely use that on his resume to really have a case for like one of the top 10 players of all time. Doesn't look like it is happening this year. And then he's getting a little bit old. So yeah, Durant, I wouldn't say like Durant's legacy is on thin ice, because Durant's legacy as an elite offensive player is what it is at this point. And he has an MVP and he's have all these, like, he's not going to go down as some fraud at the end of the day, but it would really help if he had a ring that wasn't one of those Warriors rings, and
it wouldn't hurt, dude.
It wouldn't hurt. That's a legitimate, like, all rings. A ring is a ring. Like, people will make so many.
All rings are not created equal. Absolutely not.
But the Durant ones are a little bit like, okay, dude. Like, obviously,
no, he's not actually even good.
You won. Yeah, obviously.
No.
It's almost like, in fact, he's what, 3 rings in the hole? Is it 2 or 3? He's 3 rings in the hole, where he has to win 3 to even be considered having 0 rings, in my opinion.
These are negative rings.
These are negative rings.
Do not let like MJ fans hear you talking about this. They're gonna start saying shit.
MJ
about
has 0 rings. He is 0 for 6 in the finals as well.
MJ,
Giannis and Dirk Nowitzki are the only 2 with real rings, and the Spurs and the Spurs when they beat LeBron.
Those are the only real rings ever. Or no, 2016 LeBron.
That's one more fake ring because Draymond got hurt, sadly. So that
one more
completely out of the window.
Series. I guess maybe we've talked about every single one at this point. But
have we? We haven't talked about the Suns. Oh no, we haven't talked about them.
Bucks Bulls is like,
hey,
we've always been taking this series very seriously on this podcast.
Oh yes,
we have not once doubted Chicago. It's dude, all of it. I went from like the Bucks played really bad and they still won, so the Bulls are done. It's over. And then the Bucks played bad again, and Chris Middleton got hurt, and the Bulls won. And all of a sudden, it's not maybe like they had an off game. It's like,
whoa,
they are not playing good.
Yeah,
they need to play better
at home. They have
two
bad games.
Now they have to win, and like I still trust
Chicago
Giannis.
is going to be rocking too. Chicago, I cannot wait to watch a game in Chicago. They are going to be, that crowd is going to be crazy for the Bulls right now. But yeah, Middleton getting hurt is not good because he plays, the Middleton cycle where he plays like Michael Jordan every 3 games or so.
He needs to get, and it's
and now they're not going to get that.
MCL sprain. I mean, he's like done for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
This is like, he's not going to be ready for game 1 of next series.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going up against decent odds, you're going up against the Celtics, not guaranteed, but same with the Nets. Like, you are in humongous trouble if you are relying on Drew Holiday, number 1 perimeter creation against Marcus Smart. He can't do that. If he can't be efficient in the game, you are in big trouble. Like
people forget this, but Holiday did not have like a good playoffs last year offensively. Like, he really didn't. He was kind of questionable the whole time. I mean, he did what he did on defense, especially down the stretch in the finals, but yeah, no, he, after last playoffs and just Drew Holiday in general,
he's incredibly inconsistent from what I think he's just, and then if he's the number 1 perimeter guy and like the amount of attention that's going to let them like put on Giannis, and this is assuming they even get to the second round. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves looking forward.
But
DeRozan,
finally, DeRozan melted. He is hot now.
Certainly. Certainly, he'll play like this for the rest of the series.
He's getting
it's good.
He's getting.
It's good to see him. It's good to see him step up. And I guess you could, if you were looking at this from like we expect the Bulls' perspective, like to win perspective. Like if let's say that's what we had thought the whole time, we would say Game 1, DeRozan had a bad game. That's not like him. Game 2, he played better. They won. They'll be okay. And now they stole one on the road. They're going back home. They got home court. Like. The Bucks are very much in trouble, I think. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I think
we overreact every single game. It's okay.
Well, I am overreacting, but like you can totally see how this gets away from the Bucks with Middleton out. I'm not overreacting. Middleton's out. That's really the killer part. So now it's like
borderline.
If Holiday doesn't step up, how do you get the attention off Giannis?
Right. And I mean, Caruso's been balling out defensively. He has been just absolutely key for them. He rules. He really does. And then you saw like after they won this game, I don't know if you saw that whole locker room speech where he was like, immediately after that win, they're like, they have the advantage over us just from a human aspect of it is like when you get punched in the mouth, sometimes you come back a little angrier. And so just immediately in the locker room, you see Caruso being like, guys, we're already behind the 8 ball because, we just won and we feel a little complacent. So like just having that in the locker room and everything he does on defense, he rules. He really does rule. Why the Lakers let him go will forever be one of the great mysteries. But yeah, man, it's tough. And you forget the narrative. Like before Giannis won that ring last year, it was, even through that whole playoff run, it was fire Mike Budenholzer. And before that, it was like Giannis cannot create enough by himself to win a playoff series. Like last year, I don't think it was like a fluke run from the Bucks because Giannis is obviously maybe the best player in the world, and like they were balling out, no doubt about it. But similar iterations of this Bucks team have been very beatable in the playoffs before. It's if the Bucks were like unstoppable, why didn't they win with Middleton? I guess last year was the first year with Holiday, but like this Bucks core isn't like, you don't quite feel the same way about them as you may have felt about like LeBron's teams, where LeBron would just like make it work no matter what, or the Warriors, like the death lineup Warriors. This isn't like some automatic finals bid caliber core like we've seen maybe from the past. So
especially not without Middleton, dude.
Especially not without Middleton. So yeah, will the Bulls, who have won one good game all year, which was last game against the Bucks, pull this out and win it even with Middleton out? I don't know if I would bet on it, but you can certainly see the path. And then I think the last matchup is, unless you have anything more to say about this matter, Blaiden.
No. Talk about
any
your Suns,
X factors,
man. And it's like, I'm looking at it now. The Bucks basically ran like a 7-man rotation.
Yeah.
With Middleton.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, this team's depth is not that good. You need like Grayson Allen needs to step up. Drew Holiday needs to those are Pat Connaughton's going to it's
who are some of the names on the bench that is going to come in now that Middleton is hurt? Like who are they going to be having to rely on more now that he's out?
I guess they'll play more Bobby Portis and Javon Carter. I would get. It's a little tough to tell. I would because they did play a couple of. They have Serge and Bobby Portis and Carter who all at least got in the game. But of guys who got over 10 minutes, there's only 7 of them. Guys off the bench, there's only 2 guys who got even 20 minutes. So it's like this team is the Middleton injury is a big deal. This game 3 is going to be huge.
Yep. Yeah, Middleton, he was someone that we end up putting him on the list of our top 30 player, or was he one of the first ones out? I think he was one of the first ones out.
He was out.
He was one of the first ones out. But a top 35 player in basketball. No joke. No joke at all.
He was in
the Suns.
34. The Suns.
Let's talk about the Phoenix
I fear
Suns.
that because the rest of this series is played at night,
the sun is down at night, and the Suns, their power is drained. Suns, look.
I think they will be okay. I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to figure it out. I think Chris Paul is still really good. They do lack that sort of guy who is going to go get you a bucket, and that's so tough. And the Pelicans very much have that guy. But I think at the end of the day, you're still going to have. I think they're very well coached. They still have a lot of talent. It's still only a 1-1 series, and I think that. But I think they get out of this series. Booker gets healthy. They won't have maybe a incredibly hard matchup round 2, either Mavs or Utah. Both of those are very winnable. You feel pretty decent about those in the second round. I think they still got this.
Jay Crowder needs to fix whatever is wrong with him. He lost that game. Like, as far as I'm concerned, what is he shooting in the playoffs? It's got to be
bad.
5%. It's horrible. He has been couldn't hit anything in either game. Dumb turnovers. So he's got to play better. But if he plays better, you still got Chris Paul running the show, which is you could do a lot worse. You know, Chris Paul, Ayton underneath, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson on the wings. That's still a good lineup and one capable of beating these Pelicans. Off the bench, you still got, JaVale and Payne. Payne needs to play better as well. Cam Payne has not been great in this series as either. Crowder, they've got depth. That's what the story about the Suns is like. Chris Paul has been hurt. They continued to cruise. Booker has missed games. They've continued to win. When they're up in the fourth quarter, they just win. Like, there are so many positives with this team. I do think that it is tough now. Obviously, it is tough now. It was tough before. But I still think, I agree that they can make it out of here. I think that the McCollum and BI just could not miss in that fourth quarter. I don't want to be like Foster, and they were coming at Chris Paul a little bit on defense and having some success with that. Like, the Suns' defense was not locked down, but I mean, they were hitting. They didn't miss for
they shot 55% from 3. I mean, it's like, and I'm rounding down. That is like, it's tough to keep up. I'll say that. It's tough to keep up. 17 threes in a game on 30 shots is tough.
The shot making
Jay Crowder in the 2 games so far, 0% from 3, 13% from the field. And Cam Payne, you mentioned, leads the team in turnovers.
Yeah, it's just a lot of guys didn't shoot well. From a couple guys like Cam Johnson and Crowder. If those guys start shooting a little bit better, they can still be okay. But it's they've got some work to do, and I think they know it. And I think it's a very resilient. I think they're
resilient too. I think they're going to lock in. The Pelicans are a tough challenge, man, and it wouldn't. If they lose in this first round, it's not the most shocking thing in the world, but I have faith that they can lock in. BI, again, he's like 90% of what KD is. Maybe even better after what we've seen these last 2 game sample size. McCollum, those are 2 shock, but also, I mean, you saw Chris Paul's takeover from game 1, right? I mean, he is not this guy who just can't take over offensively. He did it in this series. He's done it in this series. So he's going to have to play like he played in the Nuggets series or the Clippers series last year, where he just kind of totally took over and was dropping 30, 40 points a lot of the nights. We're going to need to see that version of Chris Paul. He did not have his best game 2, offensively or defensively. He did look like that guy game 1 though, and he's going to have to lock in and carry for a little bit here offensively, because there's a lot of good offensive options. Mikal Bridges is good. Cam Johnson is good. Jay Crowder hypothetically is good, but he sucks right now.
If Jay Crowder makes more shots, he's really good.
Ayton is good. So they still got a lot of good offensive players, but it's going to be tough. It's obviously going to be tough. And Monty Williams and Willie Green, Monty Williams is a really good coach, but it's not like he's going up against some scrub. And I honestly think he's been outcoached in the series so far. So definitely a lot of red flags with the Suns team right now. But again, to project a Pelicans win here, a lot of things will have to break their way. It's still a little tough. They're going to have to shoot absolutely. Like, BI and CJ are phenomenal shot makers. They are. But what they've been hitting so far is at a level above what you'd expect even they can can sustain. But same with Booker, I guess. I mean, that would have been a blowout if Booker didn't go for 31 in the first half, So the Suns are lacking that now. And yeah, I don't know. It could go either way, but I'm leaning Suns. For those who say I have no faith in my team, for those who say I always bet against them, all right, hear me now. The Suns will be resilient and win this series.
Wow.
Will they beat the Warriors? I don't know.
It's the first time for everything. And yeah. Well, we'll see if the Sun can stay out long enough for the Suns to get a big enough lead. And then, hopefully
let's move the game up a few hours.
a few hours just so the Sun stays out. But pretty sure that wraps things up for us. It's a pretty long episode. I didn't expect it to go this long. Our next episode on what's today for everyone?
Monday. It'll be on Monday.
Our Monday episode, we're going to do a full mock draft of what we would do if we were in the position of these teams in the NFL draft. We did this last year. It was a lot of fun. Basically, one of us is going to have the first pick, second pick, third pick, and then we'll just rotate through until we've gotten through the entire draft.
All I remember about last year's episode was Micah Parsons went embarrassingly late, and I picked Kadarius Toney for the Cardinals and went on this whole spiel about why I thought it was a great pick, and then Matt, it's like, that was not your pick, dude. That was my pick.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I forgot about that.
I forgot about that too.
I remember that.
That was a good moment.
To be fair to me, all the reasons that I listed out were why they picked Rondale Moore in round 2. Like,
how is Kadarius Toney doing?
What do you mean?
He's good at football.
Have you seen the reports? There's been he's not at the voluntary things, and
is he not?
Something.
He's
something,
at such.
something.
Well, he
I don't get me wrong. I
camp.
totally agreed with you. With
yes,
the Toney pick, and I like Toney too.
I was like, oh, they need a yak guy, so they need something. They don't even need him to go out and run routes. They just need someone who can get the ball and go. I went on this whole spiel, and it wasn't even my pick, but I was right. They absolutely prioritized that. The Cardinals completely agreed. They just didn't go with Toney round 1. They went with discount Toney, which is Rondale Moore, in round 2. So I actually kind of feel smart. I felt smart. And for those out of line tidbits and more, tune in next episode.
Tune into Monday's episode. I'm sure I will make perfect selections.
40% right. Yes.
We'll figure out the draft order eventually. But until next time, as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the flippity flop.